Most people live their entire lives never questioning the boundary between sleep and consciousness. 8 hours every night, you surrender to a realm where you become a passive observer, watching scenes unfold that you cannot control, cannot escape, cannot even remember properly when you wake. You accept this as normal. But Jung discovered something that changes everything. The dream state is not a prison. You have simply forgotten that you hold the key. Consider the terror of powerlessness. You are running through corridors that shift and change. Something is chasing you, and your legs move through thick air like you are drowning. You try to scream, but no sound emerges. You know you need to wake up, but you cannot. The nightmare holds you captive until it decides to release you. You wake gasping, heart pounding, and you tell yourself it was just a dream. But the fear remains in your body for hours, sometimes days. This is the symptom most people recognize. The recurring nightmare that visits you again and again, trapping you in the same scenario, the same helplessness, the same terror. Night after night, you return to that falling sensation, that examination you did not prepare for, that place where your teeth crumble in your mouth. You are spending a third of your life in a state of complete psychological surrender, and you have accepted this as inevitable. But here's what Jung understood that most never discover. Dreams are not random chaos. They are not meaningless static generated by a resting brain. They are the unconscious speaking in symbols you have forgotten how to read. Every figure, every scenario, every impossible landscape is your psyche attempting to communicate what you refuse to see while awake. The nightmare is not punishment. It is an invitation you keep declining because you do not know you have the power to respond. There was a patient who came to Jung describing a peculiar crisis. Upon waking, she could not distinguish dream from reality. The boundary had become permeable, unstable. She would wake and continue conversations from dreams, reach for objects that existed only in sleep, experience emotions from dream scenarios bleeding into her waking hours. This was not psychosis. This was the psyche revealing a truth that terrifies the rational mind. The line between dream and reality is far thinner than you've been taught to believe. Think about your own experience. How many times have you woken and spent those first moments uncertain of where you are, what year it is, whether the events you just experienced actually happened? In those threshold moments, your mind shows you something profound. Reality itself is negotiable, but society has trained you to dismiss this immediately. You are taught to forget your dreams the moment you wake, to prioritize the waking world as the only world that matters, to treat 8 hours of vivid psychological experience as irrelevant noise. The psychological cost of this dismissal is immense. Every night, your shadow self, those aspects of your psyche you have repressed and denied, manifests in dream form, attempting to be recognized. When you ignore these manifestations, when you remain a passive observer rather than an active participant, the unconscious material does not simply disappear. It intensifies. The nightmares become more vivid, more frequent, more disturbing. Your psyche is escalating its attempts to get your attention, and you are spending every night refusing to listen. Modern neuroscience has validated what Jung intuited. During REM sleep, your brain possesses the capacity for meta-awareness, the ability to observe itself observing. This is not mysticism. This is measurable neurological reality. Your mind can become conscious of its own dreaming state. The question is not whether this is possible. The question is why you have never been taught to access this capacity. Why you have spent your entire life accepting powerlessness in the dream realm as inevitable when your own neurology proves otherwise. Jung issued a warning that most people never hear. Those who ignore the dream world remain fragmented, living only half-conscious. You are walking through your waking life as a partial self, cut off from a third of your existence, refusing integration with the unconscious forces that shape your thoughts, your emotions, your choices. The nightmare you cannot escape is showing you the life you cannot control. And until you learn to become conscious in the dream, you will remain unconscious in ways that matter far more than you realize. The first symptom of awakening arrives without warning. You are in a dream, perhaps running from something, perhaps falling, and suddenly a thought pierces through the narrative like a blade. This is a dream, 3 words that shatter the entire architecture of your unconscious prison. The moment you realize you are dreaming while still inside the dream, you have crossed the lucidity threshold. And everything that seemed fixed, every rule you thought was absolute, becomes negotiable. But here is what most people do not understand. That moment of recognition is not the goal. It is the test. Because the instant you become lucid, your mind will try to wake you up. Your consciousness recognizes the paradox, the impossibility of being both asleep and aware, and it panics. The dream destabilizes, the walls begin to dissolve. You feel yourself being pulled back toward waking reality. And if you cannot learn to stabilize, to anchor yourself in that liminal space between sleep and consciousness, you will lose the opportunity. You will wake up frustrated, knowing you touched something profound but could not hold it. Jung understood this threshold better than anyone. He called it the confrontation with the unconscious, the moment when the ego realizes it is not the master of the psyche, but merely one voice among many. Every dream figure you encounter, every monster chasing you, every stranger offering cryptic warnings, they are not random constructs. They are fragments of your own psyche demanding recognition. The shadow self, the parts of you that you have rejected, repressed, denied. And when you become lucid, when you gain the power to control the dream, you face a choice that reveals everything about your psychological maturity. Do you use that power to escape, to fly away, to indulge in fantasy? Or do you turn around and face what has been chasing you? Stop watching now if you are not ready for the truth yet. Don't worry, you might be one day. If you are ready to continue and learn, really learn, you must be active. Go to the comments and say, "I'm ready for power." The architecture of control begins not in the dream, but in waking life. You must train your mind to question reality continuously, relentlessly, until that habit of inquiry follows you into sleep. Reality testing protocols are simple, but most people fail because they treat them as mechanical rituals instead of genuine investigations into the nature of consciousness. Throughout your day, you must ask yourself, am I dreaming right now? And you must look for evidence. Read text twice, it changes in dreams. Look at your hands, they distort, multiply, shift, check a clock. Time behaves differently when the unconscious is writing the rules. But the real technique, the one Jung would have recognized as psychologically profound, is to question your emotional state. How did you get here? What were you doing 5 minutes ago? In dreams, you cannot trace causality backward. You simply appear in situations with no memory of transition. This is how the unconscious operates. It presents you with scenarios, with emotional truths, without explaining how you arrived there. And if you cannot answer how you got to this moment, if there is a gap in your memory, you are dreaming. Once you achieve lucidity, once you recognize the dream for what it is, you enter the stabilization phase. This is where most beginners fail. They become so excited by the realization that their emotional spike destabilizes the dream and they wake up. Jung would tell you this is the ego asserting dominance, trying to collapse the paradox. You must learn to remain calm, to anchor yourself in the dream through sensory engagement. Touch the ground, feel the texture, rub your hands together. The sensation creates stability. Look at details. The unconscious struggles to maintain fine resolution, so by focusing on specifics, you force the dream to cohere around your attention. You are not escaping the dream. You are integrating with it. You are teaching your conscious mind and your unconscious mind to operate simultaneously, to collaborate instead of remaining separated by the wall of sleep. Now comes the transformation protocol, the part that separates lucid dreaming from mere fantasy. When you encounter a dream figure, especially a threatening one, you must understand what Jung spent his entire life trying to teach. That figure is you. The monster chasing you through the nightmare is not an enemy. It is the shadow self, the aspect of your psyche that you have refused to acknowledge. The angry father, the seductive stranger, the faceless pursuer, they are all parts of your own consciousness that have been exiled, denied, pushed into the darkness of the unconscious. And they will keep appearing, keep terrorizing you, until you turn around and face them. In lucidity, you have the power to do what you cannot do while unconscious. You can stop running, you can turn toward the nightmare and ask it the question that changes everything. What do you want? What are you trying to show me? Jung documented case after case of patients whose recurring nightmares transformed the moment they confronted the dream figure directly. A woman who dreamed of being chased by a wolf every night for years achieved lucidity, stopped, and asked the wolf what it wanted. It transformed into her dead father, and they had a conversation she had been unable to have while he was alive. The nightmare never returned. A man who dreamed of drowning became lucid underwater, stopped struggling, and allowed himself to sink. At the bottom, he found a door. Behind it was a memory he had repressed for decades. The drowning stopped. These are not metaphors. These are not symbolic interpretations imposed after the fact. This is the unconscious communicating in the only language it knows, and lucidity gives you the ability to respond. The integrated dreamer does not use lucid dreaming to escape reality. They use it to practice consciousness itself. Because once you know you can become aware in the dream, once you realize that what seemed fixed and absolute can be questioned and transformed, you begin to carry that awareness into waking life. You start to notice the patterns, the repetitions, the ways you sleepwalk through your days following scripts you did not write. Jung's ultimate insight was this: mastery over dreams is training for mastery over consciousness in all its forms. The person who can face their shadow in the dream learns to face it while awake. The person who can stabilize lucidity in sleep learns to stabilize presence in waking life. And here is the dangerous truth they do not tell you. Once you cross this threshold, once you know that consciousness is not binary, not simply awake or asleep, but a spectrum you can navigate deliberately, you can never return to the comfortable illusion of being a passive observer in your own life.